I'm going to remind myself to do that.
Later.
I'm Lindsay Carlson, and I'm the director of the Rushton Conservation Center, which is where we are here right now. And in normal times, we would have you seated right where we are. And Donna is right across from me in the kitchen here. And you can see behind me, if you haven't been to the building yet, it's a beautiful timber frame building that overlooks Rushton Woods Preserve, which is an 86-acre nature preserve, as well as Rushton Farm, which is our organic farm. And we have our CSA as well. And I think most of you are familiar with Willistown Conservation Trust, but we are a land trust located in southeastern Pennsylvania. And in addition to protecting land in this area, we also have a bird conservation program. Looking at you, Lisa. We have like half of our directors on this like I said, Rushton Farm, which is a community there's agroecology, and we also have a watershed protection agency.
Sounds very official.
Yes.
Yeah.
Program as well. And of course, our three preserves that many of you have probably visited, which is Kirkwood Preserve, Ashbridge Preserve, and then again here at Rushton Woods Preserve. So normally for these, we would have you all arrive and you would take a little walk at sunset through the farm that I'm motioning to here. It's out the window. But tonight we can't do that, but we do have Fred DeLong, who is the director of the community farm program, to say a couple words about the farm. Take it away, Fred.
Okay, so it's interesting because you don't realize right next to the RCC, the greenhouse is up there. We already have 10,000 seedlings coming up. And that's the great thing about the beginning of every season is you get to plant these just stick seeds in soil, and you come back the next morning and there's little things coming up. And I still refer to it that way after a quarter century of doing this. It's the fascination of the beginning of the season, especially during these times, I think is really important. It's just fabulous to see growth in the midst of everything else going on. And I'm thrilled that we're able to get started up with Donna, who's incredible, and be able to get back into cooking classes. I mean, being able to rediscover or discover what we needed to during these down times, locked in a kitchen and having to prepare food. And I suggest take a visit out to the farm at any time because we're up and going now.
Great. Thanks, Fred. And I'm going to introduce Donna Laveran, who is our chef this evening. And she not only helps us out here at Rushton Conservation Center, but she also has her own cooking classes that she does in her Lazy Susan kitchen. And so Donna, if you want to talk a little bit about your background
Sure.
and what we're going to be getting into tonight.
Yes, welcome everybody. It's so nice to see all these faces on Zoom and to be here, like we said, and I can't wait till you're all back here with us in person. But yes, I went to culinary school about 10 years ago. We were living in England at the time, so I went to a school in London called Leith School of Food and Wine and got my diploma in food and wine at that point. And then ever since, I've been doing teaching. I've been doing some small scale catering, and I had a few vegan clients for a few years where I was a private chef, which was super interesting to me. And I loved that, getting to learn lots about those cooking methods and ingredients. And I kind of pivoted back to teaching about maybe 2 years ago, just realizing it was something, it's really a life skill. It's something, whatever your age is, whatever your expertise is, everybody can stand to learn something. If you're a beginner, it's a good thing. Kids love it. And it's just a fun thing to do, together, a good together activity. So tonight, actually, I'm happy we're starting. This is probably like the first foundational thing that you learn, whether you're in culinary school or anything. It's such a good basic for cooking is proper knife skills, because it can really save you a lot of time and efficiency when you're cooking if you are cutting things properly. So the first thing that I want to say about that is your knives are very important. So I brought a couple of mine this evening. Does everybody have a decent sized chef's knife? Hopefully. Usually it should be about, 8 inches or so. this is kind of your workhorse knife. So I know there's a lot of knife sets out there, but truly you really only need one good chef's knife that's about 8 inches. You need a smaller knife, what we call like a utility knife or a paring knife, which can be like, you know, a little bit smaller than this. This is a little bit on the larger size. And then a serrated knife. And with these 3, you can pretty much do every task in your kitchen. The most important thing is that you keep your knives in good working order, which means keeping them sharpened, having a good edge on them. And if you haven't done it in a while, I would recommend that you have a professional sharpening done, just so that an expert can bring the edge back to where it should be, the blade edge. And then once you've done that and you have a pretty sharp knife, you can keep your edge sort of at home using a honing steel. The metal ones that come with knife sets, I honestly don't know why they even sell those, because they're not the greatest. The ones that I really like either are a diamond steel or a ceramic rod. These are both pretty inexpensive, maybe around like $30 to $40. And what you do is pretty regularly, if you can think about it, it's good. You put it down on your board. You're going to get your knife and you're going to try to go for like a 22.5 degree angle. Which usually is 90 is here. I got my hands. 45, 22. And we're going to go from the heel down to the tip and the heel down to the tip on both sides. And what that does is just realign the blade a little bit. So you do it maybe 4 or 5 times, you know, a couple times a week if you can think about it, and that will help your knife to keep its edge a lot longer. Once you're done doing this, I usually like to take just a damp cloth and run it along the blade just to get rid of any little metal filings or shavings. And in addition to that, if you're finding that, you know, you do that and you're like, oh, my edge is kind of not holding, it's seeming a little bit dull. You can also invest in a knife sharpener to have at home. If you're really good at it, you could do a whetstone, which is, you know, you have to be pretty good about having the right angle if you use a whetstone. If you don't feel like you're that confident in it, then you could go for something like a pull through, which is what I have here. It's got these ceramic blades that are actually put at the perfect angle. So you can pull through your knife a couple times. There's a coarse one that you use first, and then there's a finer one that you can use afterwards. So if you make it a point to do these practices regularly, then you should have knives with good blades that will keep you in good stead for years. What kind of knife you buy is it's personal preference. There's different kinds out there. The biggest difference is, I would say, between the Japanese knives and what we call Western knives. So the one that I'm holding is a global knife. It's one of the Japanese ones. It's made of a lighter weight carbon steel, and they're prized because they're much lighter weight. They hold their edge a little bit longer, and they're usually sharpened to a different degree on one side than they are on the other. The Western ones, which I meant to grab one in the back, a little bit heavier. They're made from a softer steel, like a Wusthof or a Henkel's or a Cutco. Those are all examples of what we call a Western knife. Some people prefer those because they've got a little bit more weight to them. Thank you, Lindsay. This is, yeah, sort of similar. They've got a little bit more weight to them. That's often the handle's a little bit wider, so you can get a better grip. The advantage to these is if you are a careful cook and you sort of like to hack at things, if you're, chopping bones chicken bones, if you're doing like squash, things that are, heavy, these knives are a little bit sturdier and they're less likely to chip. So sometimes you'll find with the lighter Japanese ones that they do have a little bit of a tendency, they're a little more brittle and they're a little more prone to chipping. But the best way to find out is, go to a knife store. There's a couple of websites. I think it's called knifecenter.com that has a pretty generous return policy. So you could order a couple different ones, try them out and see, which ones you like. So that is your knife selection.
I'm just going to interrupt you just for a second. I don't want to stop this train, but I am just going to take a moment to share a screen. So we're going to have a couple of different. sure. Okay, Donna, you can keep going.
Okay.
Okay, go right ahead.
Okay, so you've got your knives. The other thing that's important about the care of them is wash them, soapy water, and dry them right away if possible. No dishwasher. Dishwasher definitely dulls the blades, and it's not good for the handles either. So definitely keep your knives away from the dishwasher. Let's see, what else? Any questions so far? No, okay, good. So we've got our knives. When you get ready to chop, it's always good to take a look at your chopping situation. Do you have a good board? Wood is super forgiving for knives. Plastic is okay as well. Sometimes you'll find those textured plastic ones that have a little bit of like texture to them, and they can be a little bit slippery. So I don't necessarily love using those. The advantage of the plastic over the wood is if you're using, raw meat and you're worried about cross-contamination, it's a little bit easier to swap out the plastic ones. Sometimes the wood ones are a little bit harder to clean. But having said that, if you have a good wood board that you've invested in and you take regular care of it, putting oil on it and maintaining it, it should last you for a long time. But you basically want to have a good sized board. If your board is moving around on you, or it's a little bit moving around, what you could do is take a damp cloth, like a dishcloth or a paper towel, and just put it underneath the board. And that should stabilize it from moving around. So sometimes I'll do that. This one's nice and big, so I don't need to worry about it too much tonight. And then it's often good too to have a junk bowl nearby so that you can put all your scraps and things in there and make sure you have a nice big area to work with. So the first thing we're going to get started with tonight is onion. Is always where I start. It's kind of the basic. So here's our onion. Are they on the small screen? Can they see my hands? Or no?
Yeah, you're on the screen.
They're on the, okay. Yeah. So we've got the stem end of our onion, and then we've got the root end. And the root end's the one that's got sort of a little bit of fuzz. And for the most part, we're going to stay away from the root end. I don't know why, but everybody wants to hack off that end almost immediately. And it's actually the opposite of what you should do. So we're going to start with our stem end. We're going to make a cut. Woo, slippery one. We're going to make a little cut through the stem end. You can watch me first, and then you guys can try this after. So we're going to make a little cut through our stem end. And now we've got a nice flat surface. Which is another thing. When you're cutting, you want to always think about trying to get to a flat surface so that you don't have things that are wobbling around on you. So I've got a flat surface, and now I'm going to get my one cut through the root. Just like that. So now I've been half. I've got two halves. This makes it, number one, easier to peel. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then also I've given myself, again, a nice big flat surface for cutting. So I'm going to peel these. Sometimes people will ask, how many layers should I peel off? It's sort of just use your judgment a little bit. Like sometimes you'll find an onion that has, like a nice smooth skin pretty quickly. Sometimes you got to peel down like 2 or 3 layers to get to the nice, softer, smooth part if it's an older onion. Now, if you look at your onion, if you forget this after our class and you want to try it out again, if you look at your onion, you can see that there's all these little lines that are running down the onion, sort of away from the root. So we're going to use those as a guide. Actually, those are the lines that we're going to cut down. And what we're going to do is, again, we don't want to cut through the root. So if you start your knife, I'm left-handed, I hope that doesn't throw anybody off. If you start your knife back here, what's going to happen? I'm going to cut through the root. So we want to start the tip ahead of the root right here. And we're going to cut down. You sometimes have to do a little bit on an angle when it's on a bigger onion like this one. We're going to cut all the way down to the board along those little lines. And however many cuts you make is how big your dice is going to be at the end. So if you need just a couple of big rough pieces, you can only do, like 4 or 5 cuts. But if you want to have like a really tiny mince, then you're going to want to make a lot of these cuts. So I'm going to go ahead and make more of the cuts so we get a smaller mince. And every time I'm going all the way down to the board, sometimes it's hard for people to do that, and stay on this angle. So now I've cut all these down. And now what I'm going to do is go across. We're going to go flat. And again, we're going to stop short of the root. So we're going to go like this. And I'm actually going to do 2 cuts because this is a really big onion. If you have a smaller onion, you may only need to do 1 cut across. So now what's happening is I've got my root and it's holding together all of these pieces of the onion. And our final thing is now we're going to cut down. So I'm going to use my supporting hand is going to be in what we call a claw. So that means that I won't cut myself, right? If I have my hands like this and I've got my knuckles, it prevents me from actually cutting myself. Whereas if you have your nails like this, your fingers, you're more likely to nip a little bit. So claw on this hand. And then this other hand is going to use what we call a rock chop motion. It's going to move forward and then it's going to come back. I'm going to pull it up and the tip of my knife is not going to leave the cutting board. So I'm going to do that. And then all of these pieces are going to come right off the root. And the root's going to hold it all together, make it easy for us so that we're not trying to corral 16 different pieces of onion on our cutting board. So we just cut down. That's a big onion. And sometimes when you get to the end a little bit here, it can get a little bit harder to do. So sometimes I'll flip over. You can flip over the onion there and just keep going and then go back again this way. And there we go.
I want to just hold that up maybe a little bit. I know that we're getting a little,
up?
yeah, just
Yeah.
toward me a little bit.
This way?
That's great. It's white on white, so I'm sorry that it's a little hard
should
to
have picked
see.
a different color. Sorry.
No,
I was
that's
thinking
totally
the white
fine.
was better to have the lighter. So that's 1/2. Questions so far?
And if you guys haven't already, if you switch to speaker view up in the right-hand corner of your screen, it'll allow that. And then you'll be able to see Donna a little bit larger than just the gallery view.
Yeah, and please feel free to jump in if anybody has any comments or questions as we're going along. It's nice that we have such a small group because we can definitely, you know, answer lots of those questions and discuss things. So please feel free to jump in. Okay, so I'm going to put my onion dice, I'm going to put in a bowl. And then, are you guys trying your dice now? Everyone's very quiet.
Everybody's muted. So,
Everyone's muted. Okay, so it looks like everyone's doing half the dice.
I know, getting that claw down for me.
Yeah, the claw, it feels a little weird, right? These are movements that might not feel very, very natural when you first are doing them, but the more you do them, they become habit and then you don't think about it anymore. Good?
Ted's got it.
Okay, so when people are ready, I'm going to go on my other half because I want to show you how to do what we call a slivered onion. Sometimes you'll see the term slivered onion. So I've got my other half and I'm going to just, again, I'm going to cut down those lines, same way as I did before. Those come out. Loud. And then I'm going to just, I'm going to do one across again because I want to have smaller slivers. And then I'm going to make one cut down here, just close to the root. And those are going to give me all these little onion slices that are called slivers, which are a little bit different. They're not really, but it's a little bit different than doing the half moons. Sometimes you want to have like smaller slices of onion. And I find that it's a little bit more convenient to do it that way than necessarily to have sometimes those bigger half moons of the onion. But we're going to practice the half moons. I think I asked you to get a red onion, so we're going to practice doing half moons on the red onion for our salad. So I just wanted you to be able to see all the different variations. So that's a slivered onion.
Can I ask a question about how to pick an onion at the store?
Yeah.
I know that the fresher the onion, the less the crying happens.
Yes.
And so as I'm crying and I thought I picked a good onion, So yeah, if you could talk a little bit about how to pick an onion in a store.
So basically you want them to have like a smooth skin. I'll use my red onion actually as an example. This one has nice, shiny, smooth skin. It doesn't have too many layers of the loose outer skin that are coming off. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to tell with the onions, whether they're how old they truly are when they're at the store. But I feel like the one that I had today was sort of about this size, and it also had, you know, nice, shiny, sort of smooth skin. Sometimes I find that the bigger ones, the bigger the onions, they can be a little bit more pungent, stronger. So if you can find, sometimes the medium size or the smaller size ones are usually a better bet. But if you struggle with that a lot, then I would definitely recommend investing in a pair of onion goggles because they actually really work.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, where is everybody? Have you all chopped and slivered your onion? Yep. Okay. So let's then do our red onion. And this one I want you to concentrate. We're going to concentrate on doing very thin slivers because we're going to use the red onion raw in our citrus salad. So when we think about that, we don't want to get like a big, huge piece of raw red onion. So we're going to try and do it pretty as thin as we can. If I were home, I might cheat and use my mandolin for it, which is actually a handy thing to have as well. I've meant to bring it with me tonight and didn't, just so you could see it. But it is really handy for getting super thin slices. Red onion, we're going to do the same thing. So you can practice again, just cut that end off, one cut down through the root, and then peel our half. We won't need very much of this unless you really love a lot of red onion in your salad. That's a matter of personal preference. So if you do, go for it. For me, I don't love too much. And in fact, actually one way to tame raw onion a little bit, if you're not like a huge raw onion lover, is to soak it in a little bit of water. So you take the slices and you put them in a bowl of cold water just for like 10 minutes or so, and it mellows them out a little bit. So it's not such a bite like you get sometimes. All right, so for this one, we're just gonna do, I'm just gonna try and do some paper thin slices, half moons. Looks like we need to have music on or something, doesn't it?
I know.
I'm used to people having like talking in the background.
I know.
All right, so that's probably all I'm gonna do for my salad because I don't want to have too much. But if you have a little bowl and you could set that aside until we get to salad prep later, that would be good. And then we're gonna move on to carrot next.
Again, feel free to unmute yourselves as you're going if you have any of that.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear the sound of your knives on your cutting boards and not feel like I'm alone in Rushton with Lindsay.
Everybody's gonna have to deal with my my ad lib here. The peanut gallery.
Okay, so carrots are next. If you were going to make what are called carrot batons, which are another way to think of it is what we use when we have like a veggie tray or a crudité. Generally, the rule of thumb is that they're about 4 fingers width. So looking at this carrot, I'm going to get about 3 of those. So I'm going to cut those into lengths of 4 finger widths essentially. And then obviously if we were going to do batons, we would just cut them in half. We could leave them like that. If we were at like a super fussy restaurant, they would cut the sides off so you had perfectly square batons. But in this day and age, most of us don't want to waste that much of a carrot or a vegetable, so we kind of don't do that. Then we can cut them this way. And then I'm going to cut them lengthwise. So now what I've done is I've got all these flat surfaces, right? So again, that's what we're trying to get to. And then you can kind of line them up next to each other. And we're going to do just a small dice. This is going to go in our soup. So we don't want too large of a dice. So little squares. That's going to go in our soup. And then I wanted to show you how to julienne, which is honestly something I don't do too much at home, but I think it's nice to know how. So I'm going to take my piece that's left. I'm going to cut a tiny little bit off one side. So I've got my flat surface again. And then what I'm going to do is cut planks from the carrot. So we're going to cut down little thin planks. And I'm going to angle the planks kind of right next to each other, just like that. So they're overlapping. They're not totally on top of each other, but they're overlapping. And then I'm just going to cut down. Ooh. And that's going to give me julienne. Now, of course, you can cheat and you can get a Julienne peeler, which is what I have at home. But as I said, I think it's nice to know how to do it. And this is something you can do with carrots. You can do it with potatoes. You can do it with zucchini. Lindsay and I were talking earlier about, honestly, it's such a simple thing, but sometimes just switching up how you cut things makes a difference. So if you're, someone that's used to cutting carrots in, little coins, then maybe you do julienne for a change, or maybe you do little mini batons, or maybe you do really nice coins that are on an angle like this. Just something a little unexpected. So we kind of really living it up in the kitchen.
We had a request to maybe see the julienne a little bit closer up. So
Yeah.
I'm going to move the camera here a little bit closer for you all.
Yep. So, okay. Here, I've got a couple over here.
This is like those Zoom workouts. It's a good thing you can't see what I'm actually doing over here. Because you wouldn't be impressed. My julienne leaves a lot to be desired.
Well, it's okay. Like I said, it's not like we use it all that often, but I just think it's something fun. So I've got these planks right here, these different planks, and I'm gonna line them up. I'm gonna overlap them just like that. And then I'm gonna start, I left a little space and I'm just gonna go down. Just like that, and then you can cut.
This was learning this from you last year, Donna, was a game changer for my salad world. And like all of a sudden I didn't have to have giant round, huge pieces of carrots. Yeah.
In your salad, or like sometimes if you're pickling things, like, just you want to have some pickled carrots or something for tacos, it's nice to do a little julienne. If you're making like a little slaw, it's good to have a little bit of julienne. I also like these on the angle carrot coins. I think are kind of fun if you're doing a little carrot saute. So there's different things you can do. Don't get stuck in your rut and just do the same thing all the time. You can really, be a rebel in the kitchen and do all sorts of different shapes. I'm going to keep the rest of this to a dice because we need that for our soup, which incidentally is called a Brunoise. A small dice is called Brunoise. If you want to know the fancy French term for it. Okay. How did everyone's julienne turn out? Even Lisa's.
I'm just going to keep this muted for now.
While you concentrate?
No, I don't know, the julienne leaves a little to be desired, but
that's okay. The great thing about a vegetable soup is that it doesn't actually really matter. You can toss in whatever you've done in whatever shape and nobody's really going to be the wiser for it. So that's kind of the nice thing about vegetable soups. They're pretty forgiving.
That's good. Yeah, Mike's on.
All right, so after carrot, we're going to do essentially the same thing with our celery. My celery sticks. So if we were gonna do our batons, we would cut them in three sections. I just sort of recommend doing that anyway because it makes them a more manageable size for cutting. So you're not dealing with something that's super long. Here we go. And what we're going to do is we're going to wind up putting our celery, carrots, and onion into the soup to start with. Those trio of ingredients are called, Lindsay,
Mirepoix.
a mirepoix, which is the French word. They are sort of the basic foundational group of flavoring seasonings that a lot of sauces and soups are started with. It's kind of that trio. And then if you have Spanish cooking, they add red peppers into it. In Italy, they call it a sofrito, and it's basically those same three aromatics that you start with. Okay, so once we've got those three, why don't we get going on the stove? So we're gonna saute. I've got a soup pot. This is probably a little bit on the larger side than what you need, because you're gonna need about 6 cups of stock. So it's probably a little larger than you need, but something like this. And we're just gonna set it over medium heat and put about 2 tablespoons of olive oil in once the pan is heated up. And then you can put your carrot, your onion, and your celery in at the same time. Do I need to light this again?
I think you just turn it on. There you go.
Okay, perfect. Perfect.
I think our stove is thrilled to be fired
To
up.
be used.
Yes.
Aw.
This is
Get our
usually
onions in.
How hot did you say that was supposed to be?
About medium heat. So turn your pan on medium heat. Give it like a minute or so to warm up. Then add your olive oil. And when your olive oil is starting to look a little shimmery, then you can put your onions, carrots, and celery in, your mirepoix.
Or is this gonna take a little longer because it's electric?
Oh gosh, yeah, it will.
Yeah,
So be a little patient then. That's fine. That's not a big deal. I can hear mine sizzling a little bit too. That's usually a good sign that it's nice and hot. Okay, put those in there. Then you can kind of leave it, stir your veggies around so they get coated with the olive oil. And then we'll just kind of let them saute for a few minutes while we cut up the rest of the veggies that are a little bit smaller. We'll take a look at those in a minute. So let's see. So this soup is a great sort of clean out your fridge, whatever you have, you can put in it. It's a very forgiving soup. Very simple, but it's really comforting. So tonight we are going to use potato, and we're going to use zucchini, and we're using green beans, and I've got some navy beans and some kale. But you can use, you could put broccoli, you could put peppers, you could put peas in. What else am I forgetting? Any kind of veg that you like, you can put in. You could use cabbage instead of the kale. So it's super adaptable. I have a massive zucchini, a big zucchini, so I'm going to cut that up next. Just take the top and the bottom off the zucchini. And again, just a long vegetable I find is easier if I cut it in half. It's easier to work with. And again, what I want to do is get to my flat surface. So I'm going to go stand it on its side on the flat and then cut it in half that way. And now I've got a nice surface this way that I can work with. gonna cut it down in long pieces. And again, so we're using this in the soup. We don't want our pieces to be too big. So you do want to think about that a little bit as you're cooking, like how, how am I going to be eating this? Are these pieces going to shrink? Am I going to roast them? Are they going to shrink a little bit so that I can make them, kind of a larger dice? Or are they going to stay about the same size? And I want them to be, something that's kind of bite size.
If you were going to make your own vegetable stock,
Mm-hmm.
Are there any really great sort of extras like zucchini? Are there any rules for what you can kind of throw in the freezer and save for making veggie stock?
Mm-hmm. So veggie stock, basically the one big rule is don't use anything starchy in it. So you don't want to use potatoes, you don't want to use squash, because they make it very cloudy. So they're not a good choice. So onions are great for stock, celery, carrots, leek tops are really great. Zucchini, broccoli, you could use a little bit of zucchini, broccoli or cauliflower. I would stay away from those because they have that sort of cabbagey.
That should be intuitive.
That's
but
but still, just to say it, so people know.
that's-
But yeah, and making your own veggie stock is super easy. It should take literally half an hour. So if you have some of the things that we've mentioned, if you have parsley stems, if you've got thyme, if you have peppercorns, you could use a couple cloves. You could use a little bit of ginger if you want to have a little bit of that sort of gingery spice in there, that little bite. You could use a little bit of that as well. And just put them in a pot, all of your pieces, and cover them with cold water. Bring it to a boil and then turn it to a simmer. And in like half an hour, 30 minutes, you'll have a great vegetable stock that you can use. And anything you make homemade, as we all know, is so much better than anything you can buy. So definitely recommend doing that. If anyone's up for doing, a chicken stock, it's essentially the same premise. You just need to get some chicken bones. And what I'll do a lot of times actually is buy a rotisserie chicken, take the meat off, shred the meat, and then take off any like extra skin, any big pieces of extra skin, but basically just put those bones in the stock pot with some of the veggies, the onion, the carrots, the celery. Onions, it's good to actually leave the skins on because they'll help to give the stock some color, like a richer color. And then do the same thing. Chicken stock, usually you want to let it simmer for longer than veggie. Veggie's like a half an hour. A good chicken stock really is like 3 to 4 hours. So it's not hard making stock. It's just time generally that you need for a meat one. So good question, Lindsay. All right, so zucchini. So has everybody been cooking a lot? Yeah, in pandemic world?
Yep. What else is there to do besides work, cook, walk? Bird, you can bird.
Look at the birds, Lisa.
That's right. I've become very attached to my bird feeder birds. They actually know when I'm coming out in the morning. They have my whole schedule down.
Aww. My husband actually said the other day, he was looking outside. He said, look, there's the cardinal outside. And he never really liked birds. He loved them last year. He used to sit on the porch. We have a big covered porch outside, and that was his office in the warmer months. And he sort of got really into the birds.
I don't think he's alone. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I've noticed that they're coming back. All of a sudden we can hear them like in the mornings and stuff. It's so nice, right? It means hopefully spring is coming soon.
How about cross-country skiing? Who's done that?
I wish. I don't have skis, but I would if I could.
The Blends took us to the Rushton Woods. It was awesome.
Yeah.
I know Barb, who's on here, has been cross-country skiing because that's my mother, and she's been out. She's out in Chester, out towards Chester Springs, though, Kimberton.
Yeah, it was perfect.
Our last pickup, we did a cheese tasting a few weeks ago, and I think we had 3 people, one being Barbara Heck, who's on tonight, not to call you out again, who had just come from cross-country skiing to pick up their cheese boards. I'm like, does that not sound like we're all now like Scandinavians or
very
like,
outdoor,
yeah,
healthy. I went snowshoeing for the first time
that's
this
great.
year. I did it 3 times in a week. So I felt like
Yeah, we got a winter.
No jumping?
Snowshoeing.
snowshoeing. It was great actually. It was so pretty and it was great exercise.
I bet.
Yeah, you really work up a sweat on that. So recommend that.
So we're just thinking about it.
Potato. I'm moving on to potato because I've done zucchini. So I'm just peeling mine now. You guys probably are too. You can, if you want, you can peel potatoes ahead of time. Just stick them in a bowl of cold water and that will keep them from turning brown. If you haven't, please give your soup pot a stir so that your vegetables aren't getting too brown. If they're looking a little bit brown, just turn the heat down a little bit. We want them to get nice and soft before they take on too much color.
I don't know what, did she, I can, how's she gonna, we just cut it.
You got your potato?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Just cut a little bit of so looking at my potato is reminding me of, I think our best Christmas present this year was an air fryer. So I don't know if anyone has one, but I kind of was on the fence for a long time thinking about whether I should get one and whether we would use it. And I didn't intend for it to live on our counter, but we've actually been using it so much that that it's there. It might be there permanently.
What are you making there?
Oh my gosh, we've made French fries, we've made Brussels sprouts, we've made crispy cauliflower, tuna tartare on crispy rice that was amazing.
Ooh.
We've done crispy chickpeas. My son did deep fried Oreos.
Oh my.
Wow.
So what haven't you done?
I mean, I know it's pretty amazing actually. It heats up really quickly and yeah, it pretty much can do anything. I did meatballs in there that turned out really well. We did Japanese fried chicken, little bites. So those were great too.
Air fryer sounds cool. That would be good for your buffalo wings.
Yeah, that wings are great in there. So I've got my French fries now, which I'm gonna cut. I'll cut them smaller. Sadly, I wish I had it with me. We could have some French fries with our soup.
Next time, our next is gonna be how to air fry everything from Rushton Farm.
All of Fred's healthy veggies, all in
Yeah.
the air fryer. Well, they'll still be somewhat healthy, actually. That's the nice thing about it is like, it's pretty incredible. Like the crispiness that you get without using a lot of oil. It's pretty amazing.
I will admit that I am today years old when I realized that's how you cut French fries. So just so you.
Well, better late than never, right?
That's why you're here.
Yeah.
To learn how to make French fries in an air fryer.
Hey, they're healthier than the McDonald's ones,
Oh
right?
my gosh.
All right, so I've got my cubed zucchini, I've got my cubed potato. Is everyone caught up? For the most part? Okay, good. Take a look at your veggies again. We'll see how they're doing. Ooh, mine are getting very brown over here. I'll turn mine down. Very high burner. Okay, and then I've got some green beans, which I did cut most of them. I just cut them in half. Again, just thinking about, when we're eating the soup, you want a piece that's going to be able to fit on your spoon, right? So just cut them, I think in thirds is probably the right size, but it depends kind of how big they are.
We have a question here. How do you spell Mirepoix?
How do you spell Mirepoix? M-I-R-E-P-O-I-X. It's French.
Oh, wow.
Mhm,
Yes.
mhm.
Good question.
Mhm.
Well, maybe we'll include some terminology that we talk about tonight in our follow-up email.
Yeah,
That
that's
would be-
good. And I'll give you another one, actually, another French term that's called mise en place, which means everything in its place. Lindsay knows this one as well. So basically we are doing our mise en place right now as we're doing all of our chopping. And I kind of broke the rules a little bit because we put some of the things on already to cook. But generally the idea of mise en place is, Lindsay will show you the
We're moving
trays.
here,
We're
everybody.
moving over. So it means everything in its place, which means you have prepped all of your ingredients before you start cooking. And truly, it seems a little bit counterintuitive. People sometimes want to just kind of get going when you get in the kitchen and turn the stove on and get going. But actually, you will save yourself time and you will be less stressed if you take the time to do a little prep beforehand. And it also means that you're not sort of digging through a cabinet while something's burning on the stove and realizing that, in fact, you don't have an ingredient that you need. So it allows you to see beforehand what you're missing, what you need. So I do try, and I don't do it all the time. I will admit that, but I do try and do it whenever I can. Even just gathering the ingredients that are, you know, room temp or pantry staples and sticking them on a baking sheet in the morning before you know, go off to work or whatever, just even helps you feel a little bit more organized and efficient. So continuing on with our mise en place, we've done all of our nice dice. We've got our beans, our tomatoes. We're going to do some kale, which is going to be added at the end. So the trick with the soup is just staging when you're adding the vegetables. So we added obviously our Mirepoix first because they take the longest to cook. In a minute, we're going to add our beans and our zucchini and our potatoes because they take less time to cook. And the last thing that's going to go in is our kale, or you could, if you were using cabbage, that would be because they cook super easy in just a minute or two. So this is Lacinato Kale, also called dinosaur kale. Lots of different great varieties of kale. I would say this one and curly kale are the ones that you see most often in the markets these days. So these are nice ones. And what you can do is, what I usually do is just go down on either side of the spine of the leaves and then just take the spine out. If we were, I mean, we could actually use some of the stems if you don't want to waste the stems and you want to use them in your soup. You can just slice them in small little pieces. And we would probably add those in with the potatoes and the beans because they take a little bit longer to cook. The same thing if you're, you know, sauteing kale, you're stir frying kale on the stove, just keep your keep the stems separate from the leaves because they take a little bit longer to cook. So you want to put those in first and then add the leaves later. And then we've got our leaves, and for this, I'm going to do sort of thicker ribbons for the soup. You can tear it. It doesn't matter. If you're doing, you know, kale chips or something where you want bigger pieces, then you can just tear bigger pieces. And honestly, sometimes I'll even use my hands to pull the spine off this way. So there's no real method for doing it. Sometimes I find the knife easier. Sometimes I just feel like using my hands. So you can do it either way. But I would just say, in terms of the cooking, you want to make sure you separate out the stems from the leaves. So once you have those, we'll put them in a little bowl and put them off to the side because we won't eat them right away. And then I would say, if your veggies are looking nice and tender, the ones in the pot, then go ahead and add in your green beans and your potatoes and your zucchini.
Now I'm thinking about the air fryer. Like kale chips, air fryer.
Air fryer. We'll have to do an air fryer class. Okay, so we'll put those in here. And why not? We'll add our stalks in too. They're healthy. I had someone last week who I said, I got the kale out because we were making fish stew with a little bit of kale. And I said, oh, I'm sure, have you used kale? And she said, no, I really haven't. I was like, oh, great. And I was so happy to get to talk about it and how it's so, you know, so nutritious and healthy, but also like how versatile it is for cooking. So it's, and even not cooking, right, if you have it in the salad. So I'm going to go ahead and throw all that stuff in, give it a stir. And the potatoes.
thinking about all the different kinds of kale that we get over at Rushton.
Mhm.
And I think it was maybe the time you did kale chips here with us and you went over how to, like, if you've ever had kale and you didn't marinate it or you didn't soften it up, it is just about the toughest green to get through.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is like, but then when I started getting so much of it from the farm, it was like, well, we have to use this.
Yes.
And so I don't know if like, just a quick, like how to process your kale if you're not cooking it. I don't know if anybody here would be interested in hearing that, but it was a life changer for me.
Does anyone want to hear more about kale, or are you kale experts already?
No, Ted's like, no.
No. Okay. So kale, like I said, if we're going to do it in the soup tonight. You can also do it as, stir fry on the stove. If you want to do the oven chips that Lindsay was referring to, where it gets super crispy, and they're delicious, just with even a little bit of salt, or you can sprinkle a little bit of, chili powder on there, or a little other seasoning. You would tear the kale into, bigger pieces. Think about like a kind of a potato chip size, put them on a sheet pan, and sprinkle with a little bit of olive oil, not too much. And then the key is actually, there really isn't any other word for it. You got to massage the oil into the kale. So you can do this for the oven chips, put them in like a 350 degree oven, sprinkle them with a little salt first, put them in the oven, maybe like 10 minutes or so, 10 to 15 minutes. And they're done. As soon as they crisp up, take them out, they're done. They're kind of addictive. They're really yummy. And if you want to use kale raw, because you want to have, salad, you're going to use that same technique that I just described with the oil. You're going to take your dressing or your oil and you're going to massage it into the leaves, because otherwise the leaves are they're a little bit tough. The dressing kind of sits on top. It doesn't really get absorbed. So if you rub it in a little bit, let it sit for a couple minutes, maybe 5 to 10 minutes before you serve it. So it has time to kind of slightly wilt a little bit. And then the dressing gets absorbed. It's your best bet. But the extra nice thing about kale salads is that they hold really well. So you can still have them, the next day and 2 days after, whereas with normal salad greens, you wouldn't be able to do that because they would be all soggy and wilted. So super versatile. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Okay, now I want to shift a little bit and go to our citrus salad. So I'm going to shift my trays over.
Would you like another cutting board, or are you good?
You know what?
Donna, do we put in the stock or anything, or we're just cooking the vegetables?
We're cooking the vegetables first.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's next. We're going to do the beans and the tomatoes and the stock.
Okay.
So maybe just have those, ready off to the side for when our veggies soften up. Then we're going to put those things in.
Take care of this.
Okay, so this citrus salad, I've got, as you can see, hopefully on my tray, a variety of different citrus. You can use whatever you have, whatever you like. It's really nice if you have a mixture of different ones. And this is such a great salad for this time of year when all of the citrus is in season. Every time I go to the market, there's so many different kinds. I love, there's blood oranges, there's grapefruits, there's Caracara. I think this is a Mineola that I got. There's ones that are similar that have like a little top knot called the sumo ones that I see. This is a Meyer Lemon, which is a sweeter, more floral lemon. It's not quite as strong and acidic as a regular lemon. So, whatever you have, you can use tangerines, you can use mandarins. And the beauty is in just getting a mix of different colors and sizes. And what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to what we call supreme citrus. So you're going to want your serrated knife for this. So grab your serrated knife if you don't have that. And we're going to top and tail the orange. So you're going to take the bottom and the top parts off. And then the idea is that you're going to go around the outside and take the peel off, but you want to leave as much flesh as you can. So you're trying to just get the peel and the pith off, going around in a circle and curving down along the bottom. So you're left with just the flesh, but none of the peel. This is such a great way to get, if anyone has children or people who don't really like eating citrus. I remember when I started doing this when my kids were younger, it's such a great way to get people to eat more citrus when you supreme for them. It's almost a little bit of an act of love, I would say. Just shows that little extra bit of caring, because essentially what we're going to do is get rid of the membranes and just have the nice fruit segments on their own. Okay, so not a perfect job, but a pretty good job of getting rid of my peel. Okay, so peel's gone. And then what we're gonna do is, can everybody see, hopefully? Okay, if you look, now what we're gonna do is cut in between the segment, the membrane. So we're gonna go down and then we're gonna cut out. And here comes our nice segment. So we're gonna go down and then we're gonna come out. And that way you're left with the nice fruit and not with those membranes, which we're gonna leave behind. So the other nice thing about this salad I'm going to show you on my blood orange next is it's nice to get a couple of different ways of cutting as well. So we're going to slice that a different way. But this one I want to do just in these segments. This is a Caracara Orange, which was, I think they were developed about 15 years ago. Fred probably might know more about this than I do, but it was a cross between two different oranges. And at some point I knew what they were. I can't remember, but it's such a pretty color. And they're really sweet too. So I would say they might be my favorite actually lately.
I think this is another orange that I found through you.
Through me.
We're getting
Just
to do this
spreading the love of the Caracaras all over.
Last winter. They're delicious. They're still out there.
Yeah,
too,
they're
for
still
a
out
little
there.
bit
I feel
longer.
like they're pretty common now, right? I feel like you see them in most markets have them.
Yeah.
They're becoming as mainstream as the navel.
Oh yeah, blood oranges.
How's everyone's supreming coming?
It's definitely a labor of love.
I told you.
I always wondered how you did this though. That's for sure. I always
See,
wondered.
and now you know it's not that hard. Sometimes what I do too is I will do this over a bowl just to catch some of the juices. And I didn't do it over a bowl, but I'm right now squeezing some of the juice left over in the membranes into a bowl because I might use that for some of my dressing, and I might use it to soak a little bit of our fennel in so that it doesn't discolor. So if you can do the same thing, that's great. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to sort of assemble the salad right as we go along. So I have a platter and I'm going to put these on. Okay. And then I'm going to stop you because I think I want you to put your beans and your tomatoes into your soup, and then you can add your stock in as well. So I have one can, I'm using navy beans, which are a little smaller than cannellini. And then I have a can of diced tomatoes, and then you should have 6 cups of stock, chicken or vegetable.
It's in the cabinet. I forgot to get that out.
There is, yeah.
I'm putting a little salt in my soup too. So you could do that. If you have kosher salt or sea salt, you could use about a teaspoon of salt and maybe half a teaspoon of black pepper. I've got my stock. This is a very orange stock. How's our time, Lindsay?
It is 7:05.
How many cups of was it 6?
Yep, 6 cups of stock. Yep. And then once you get those things in, just go ahead and turn the heat up a little bit so that we can bring it to a boil. And as soon as it comes to a boil, we'll turn it down to a simmer and let it simmer for like 15 minutes or so. Okay. Then we can go back to our citrus. So now what I want to show you on the blood orange is similar, but it's a little bit easier because we're not going to supreme it. So it's a little bit of a shortcut. We're still going to take all the peel off the outer part. And again, the blood orange is such a fabulous color. I literally feel so cheered up whenever I make this salad at this time of year. It really cheers me up, all the beautiful colors of it.
It is so pretty.
I know, it is really pretty.
There are very few recipes where you get to pick one of everything that you want when it comes to citrus and have it all go together. Although I guess there's really no rules, but
there's no rules. This is a great, very adaptive salad. So tonight we're going to use all the citrus. We're going to use a little bit of the red onion that we cut earlier, the one that we sliced really thinly. We're going to use some fennel and we're going to use some olives. But you know, if you don't like olives, leave them out. If you don't have the fennel or you don't like fennel, you could leave that out too. So it's kind of a use what you have. So now I've got my blood orange, which is falling apart a little bit. Not going to cooperate. So what I was going to do here is just cut it in slices. Unfortunately, it's falling apart, so I might have to do that on another one, but that's okay. These little segments. But again, it is beautiful color. So I'm just going to put it on here. And then maybe I'll try my mini, well, maybe I can slice that instead. Did everybody have mandarin oranges in the can when you were growing up? They were the best. Well, I haven't had them in so long. And actually I was making one of these salads a few weeks ago and had a mandarin, and I used that and I supremed it, and it was so good. And it was just like the ones in the can, but even better, of course. My kids could not really understand why I was so excited about it, but I actually really was. Okay.
Those were the days before the old clementines became so popular.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Clementines are the best, aren't they?
Yeah. Back when we were kids, we didn't have such things.
Well, we did, but they had seeds in them, I think. So they weren't as rewarding, right? And they were harder to peel. And again, this guy looks like he wants to fall apart too, but I'm still going to try and slice him up. So yeah, so obviously the slicing's a little bit easier than the supreming. Oh, and this guy's it too. But you know, I would encourage you to do a little bit of both, switch it up. And then I want to show you the Meyer Lemon, which I see them a lot these days. Right now they have, you know, this we're in full citrus mode, obviously. So if you see them, definitely buy them and use them instead of a regular lemon, just because they have a slightly different flavor profile to them. Get the seeds out of that one.
I'm dripping all the juices here.
Yep. See, hold on to those juices. The other thing is though, if some of them are on your cutting board, that's fine, because we're going to cut the fennel right on the cutting board. And then that's, like I said, it's good because it will help keep the fennel from discoloring. So, all right. So I've just sort of put them in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Citrus would help. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So lemon, here's my lemon. You can use the same technique. This is basically for lemons and limes. If you're serving lemon or lime wedges, you know, at the bar with drinks, or you're, you know, having friends over and you're going to serve lemon wedges with dinner.
Can we use regular lemon? Hello, can we use regular lemon?
You can absolutely use regular lemon. You can put a little bit in the salad. You know, you might not want to eat as much regular lemon. So, you know, a couple small pieces in there would be great.
Okay. Thank you.
So we're going to take the top and the bottom off again, top and tail. And then I'm going to cut down the middle down one of my flat sides, and I'm gonna make wedges just like we normally would. But my little extra trick for that is I'm gonna turn them on their side like this on one of their flat sides, and I'm gonna cut down diagonally to take out the membrane again. And what that does is it makes it super easy to get the seeds out, except for that guy. And it also allows you to squeeze a lot more juice out of it. So it's just a little extra something I always notice now when it's done and when it's not done. So it's kind of become a habit of mine to do it. But like I said, it's just kind of satisfying because you get a lot more juice out, but also if it is a lemon, then it allows you to get the seeds out more easily as well. I'm going to put a couple of those in our salad. If your soup has come to a boil, can you turn it down to a simmer? Side and there. Yeah. Okay, there's that. And we'll do this half of an orange.
I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe some salt.
Well, no, I just turn on the chicken. It's really heavy.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to fennel. Here's our fennel. What we're going to use from the fennel is we're going to save some of the fronds to use as garnish. And then we're going to get rid of the stalks we don't really use for anything. So we're going to get rid of those because basically what we want is the bulb end. That's what you use. So I'm going to take off some of these fronds and just set them aside because we'll use them on the top of the salad for garnish at the end. And they're really pretty too, I think. Actually, they have a pretty color and pretty little like feathers. And so they're a nice little garnish. So we'll take those off. Obviously, if you don't like, the licorice taste of fennel, feel free to skip it.
I don't really like it.
You don't really like fennel? That's fine. Then don't use it.
Sorry. Darn, I was busted on my non-mute.
That's fine. I've become a late convert to fennel. I actually really like it. It's so sort of like, I don't know, it's very clean tasting to me, but I definitely understand it is licoricey and it's not for everyone. So I'm back to my regular knife and I'm going to get rid of these stalks, take them off.
I feel like I should try it. Should I?
You should try it, Lisa. You should try it.
All right.
Mix it in with the citrus because it's a nice counterpoint to the citrus. Actually,
Yeah.
It's clean, and so try a small piece. Again, this might be something I would use my mandolin for because I like when it's sort of sliced paper thin. But that's we're gonna practice our knife skills and do our best thin cutting. So what I'm gonna do with this is I'm gonna cut off the bottom end, the stem end a little bit. If you want to trim that off. And then I'm going to cut it just down the middle. My outer thing is like, it's kind of a little bit not so nice. It's a little bit dirty and icky. So I'm going to take that off. Like we said before, use your judgment. You might have a smaller piece, a younger piece that looks a little bit better. It's totally individual. So now I've got 4 pieces of it. Did I cut this one? No, I didn't. So now I have 4 pieces. And if you look inside, you can see there's a little bit triangle of the core. So we just want to get rid of that. We're going to just cut it on an angle to get rid of the core, cut it on an angle. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do really thin slices. We're going to turn it down so that the bottom end where the core was is where we're going to start. And we're going to cut just really thin slices of it. And then we can sprinkle those on. Like I said, if you've got your citrus on your cutting board, you can sort of toss it a little bit in the citrus juice, and then we can add it on top of the salad. Here we go. That's probably all I'll use on mine. Put that in here. And then here we go. Red onion, your red onion from earlier. You can put that on the top as well. I'm going to use my thinner slices. I'm pulling out my thinnest slices that I can find. There we go, a little bit of that. And then I've got some Kalamata olives tonight. Again, if you don't like olives, leave them off. I'm just going to tear them into little pieces. Sometimes I really like using those, the black Niçoise olives, the ones that are oil cured, because they're super salty and they just have a nice like counterpoint to the sweetness of the citrus and everything else going on. It's like this nice little salty pop. But use whatever you have or whatever you like. Some people like green olives better, and that's totally fine to use them as well. So I'm just ripping those in half with my hands and putting those on. And then we're going to dress this. So I've got a little bowl with some citrus juice. If you have that, great. You can use that. If you don't, just use your vinegar. I think apple cider vinegar was on your list. You could use apple cider, you can use white wine, you could use rice wine vinegar, or you can use some of your citrus juice, whatever you have. I'm just going to put a little bit of, I've got agave. We should be using Rushton honey, but it was a little crystallized and we forgot about that to the last minute. So we're going to use agave, but if you have honey, great. Just put a little drizzle of honey.
Yeah, who's got their Rushton honey? You guys can.
Oh, it's the best, isn't it?
There it is.
So good.
Earlier have theirs. This is the sous chef taking the heat on this one. I didn't prep the honey.
That's okay. Listen, that's why it's good to be.
I used the last of our Rushton honey this morning. It's awesome.
It's good.
So
it's
good.
really good.
Really good.
And then a little bit of olive oil. So whisk your honey and your acid, whatever it is, whatever you have, and then a little bit of olive oil in there with it.
And then
We've got a late comer here, Eliza.
Oh, hello, Eliza. And then we're gonna just drizzle that on our salad.
Drizzle that in the salad.
And then we're gonna finish with some fennel fronds and some pepper on the top. And we will set that to the side until our soup is ready. Where is our pepper?
so the salad just looks like this.
Yep.
Cool.
I meant to get that out earlier.
We don't want this kale, do we?
And then I've got a little bit of the green.
A lot of.
Kale is so 2020. Get rid of it. Come on.
What is kale?
2020. It's in the past.
Okay, so I want to see everyone's salad. Oh yeah, that looks great. Yep. Awesome.
My salad's now on my laptop.
Well, that's
Whoops. I'm a little
Very
crazy
well.
on the showing.
anyone
Slippery.
else?
Slippery little suckers.
Okay. So we had a little miscommunication about the pesto. So how many of you guys have the ingredients to make the pesto?
I just bought the pesto.
Block pesto, that was what was on the list, but we did send you the recipe for the mint pesto. So I'm happy to take you through that.
Oh, whoops.
No, that's fine, because I did say purchase pesto. I just we weren't sure we would have enough time.
Yeah.
But if anybody has the ingredients, and then I can actually show you how to do garlic and how to do some herbs. So I can take you through that really quickly. And even if you have a purchase pesto, it's fine because you can still get to see that. So let me just wipe down yours.
I should put this all over the salad.
Fine, it's only you and me, so it doesn't matter, right? Okay. Okay, so garlic.
You're one of the ones that's gonna get a problem with leaving there.
Garlic is, now that you know the technique for onion, it is the same exact technique that you use when you are are you chopping a shallot or when you're chopping garlic? It's the same thing. They all have a little root. They all have a little stem. Obviously the garlic is just on a much smaller scale than the onion, but it's the same thing. So the garlic, we're going to press down with our knife. We're going to give it a, I don't want to say a big whack, but a kind of medium whack, enough of a whack so that the skin cracks and you can peel it off really easily. Don't whack it so much that it crashes into like 6 pieces, because then you've sort of defeated the purpose, right? And then you're going to have to corral all those tiny little bits all over. So just enough to kind of crack the skin. And then we're going to do the same thing we did. If you look at the garlic, it's got those little teeny lines running down it the same way as the onion. And we're just going to cut down those little lines.
Better taste it. I'm going to tell Donna if you don't like it.
And then we're going to cut across. I have a nice fat one, so I'm going to do 2 cuts again, but usually I do 1. And then we're going to cut down.
Go eat some. Stop looking at TikToks.
And then we're going to have
I
mince.
just want you to taste a couple bites.
What?
Lisa's trying to get somebody to taste a couple.
Oh, okay. 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 So now I've got, this is what we call minced garlic, right? It's in little pieces. But sometimes if you ever see a recipe that calls for crushed garlic, which is something you obviously can get if you use a garlic crusher, you might not have a garlic crusher, or like me, you might be too lazy to clean the garlic crusher because it's kind of a pain to clean. So another way that you can get yourself to that state of crushed garlic is if you take a good pinch of salt. This is like rock salt, which probably isn't the best, but we're going to just improvise here. And you put a good pinch of salt on top of the garlic, and then you're going to hold your knife sort of sideways a little bit. So you're actually going to use the side of the blade to crush the garlic, and the salt helps to break it down and make it nice and juicy. So you'll wind up getting that nice crushed paste that you would get if you had, you know, a crusher without having a crusher. So I'm going to do that a little bit for our pesto.
That is such a great trick. I mean, skill.
That's a trick. It's a little trick. The other way that you can cheat, which I do a lot of times now at home, I will say, my favorite shortcut for garlic is if you use a microplane. If you have a microplane at home, you can just grate your garlic. And I actually like to do that all the time because, again, I'm lazy. I think you probably just heard me say that. And that way you can literally grate your clove right into whatever you need it for without getting out the knife and the cutting board and the whole thing. So, and also the advantage to that is too, if you're using your garlic raw, so if you're using it in a sauce or a dressing, it actually breaks it down and it will disappear into whatever you're mixing it with. Whereas in the mint state, like I have it, it's, you know, it's small, but you still run the risk of, you know, getting a piece of raw garlic in your mouth. So it's up to you. Some people might like that, but I like it better when it's nice and really smashed up. So anyway, that's our garlic. I have a little chopper that I'm going to use for the pesto, so I'm going to stick that in there. And then I have some toasted pine nuts, so I'm going to stick those in. The beauty of pesto is, and you should have the recipe. It's just treat it like a template. So it's a basic kind of formula. You can swap in whatever you want, whatever you have, whatever you like. So if you don't like pine nuts, you can use almonds, you can use hazelnuts, you can use pistachios. If you don't like garlic, you could leave them out. And then as far as your herbs, we're doing a mint one, which is the classic, is obviously basil. We're going to do mostly mint, and then I brought along a little bit of parsley as well. You can make one with kale in it. You can put a little dill. You can put cilantro. You can put a mix, whatever you have. I wanted to show you how to chop some of these herbs. So here's our mint. Mint and basil tend to be a little bit fussier. They're not as forgiving as parsley, for example, or cilantro. So I don't know if you've ever seen the term chiffonade. It's another fancy French term. I don't usually do this, but I want you to know how to do it. So when you see the term, you'll know what it means. So basically it's something that we use for the basil and the mint. We take the leaves. These are really tiny mint leaves too. Usually they're a little bit bigger. You take the individual leaves and you make a stack of them. Can everybody see? Let's see. So we'll
Yeah.
make it back. Okay. And then we're going to roll them up like a little cigar. Just like that. And then we're going to cut them crosswise into little ribbons. And the idea behind that is that it keeps them from turning black, like they are very prone to do because they're sort of very fragile. So, but like I said, I don't usually do that. I usually just honestly tear them or chop them into big pieces because I feel like the more of the taste of the herb you get, the better it is. Parsley, just to show you how to cut this, we use what we call a cross chop motion. So we're gonna just take the parsley off. You can use, if you have like some of these nice tender stems, the same is true for cilantro. You can use those. When you get to some of the bigger ones, those are the ones you kind of want to steer clear of because they'll be a little bit tough. But the ones on the top are nice and tender. Parsley is great because it's super forgiving. I always have some at my house. I keep it in, I treat it like a flower. And I keep it in a glass of water and I stick it in the fridge and it lives in there for a week, 10 days, like totally happily. So it's easy to always have that on hand. So we'll cut through it like that. And then the idea with the cross chop is our knife is going to go in like a semicircle. We're going to rest our hands lightly on the end. And then we're just going to chop in a semicircle back and forth until you get your desired level of chop.
I've seen like herb choppers. How does, I don't own one. Is that more effective or easier?
I have to say I've never used one, but I feel like it's one of those things in the kitchen that's like a one-trick pony that you don't really need to have it if you have, you know, your knife and yeah. So, okay, so I'm going to add in some of my parsley that I just chopped, and then I've got a whole bunch of mint over here. So we'll put that in. And where's my olive oil? There it is. Perfect. Right next to me. I'm gonna put the top on. So pesto, originally the term comes from the pestle of the mortar and pestle, which is like a, you know, the stoneware bowl and like the little thing that you use to pound it. That's the classic pesto. But obviously you can use a food processor like I do most of the time. It's the texture's a little bit different, but it's just as good, I think. So put this in. A little butter. And then we're going to add some olive oil. And basically the trick with pesto is just to not process it too much. Sometimes what happens is if you process it, you turn the herbs like almost black or gray, and it doesn't look so appealing. So if you just kind of think about, oh, I just want to, you know, chop them up, but not process them too much, it will give you a better result. So I'm going to leave this one a little bit chunky, and I'm going to stir in a little bit of salt. Sorry, not salt. I'm going to stir in the cheese, the Parmesan, and you could stir in a little salt, but since the cheese is salty, you want to stir the cheese in first, and then you can taste it and see if it still needs a bit of salt in there. And then we're going to use this for the garnish on top of our soup. All right, so I left that one pretty chunky, but it's purely a matter up to you. You can, you know, could have gone a little bit further and got those, the nuts chopped up a little bit more, but I thought it's kind of nice for the texture actually. And it's nice in the top of the soup. Any questions on pesto? Okie dokie. How is everyone's soup looking? Good. Okay. What you should do at this point is give your soup a taste and see if it needs any salt and pepper. And if it does, give it a little bit more and then just stir the kale in, and we'll let the kale cook for like 2 minutes and then it'll be ready. I'm gonna go taste ours.
Donna, question. Are you the Laverans that raised Bernie's mountain dogs?
That was my mother-in-law.
Oh, your mother-in-law.
Yeah.
Our first learner came from Beatty.
Yours did?
Yes.
Oh, really? I'll have to tell her.
Well, 25 years ago, she brought a dog out to our farm. It was just a beautiful thing.
Oh, she did it for a long time. She stopped breeding them about maybe 4 years ago.
And interestingly, the dog came with the name Brie, as in cheese, but we renamed her Kibo, as in Kibo Mountain. So.
Interesting. Well, I'll have to tell her.
Okay, thank
She'll
you.
love to hear that.
What a small world.
I know, it's funny.
Love it.
She did a lot of works. I mean, she has a lot of them.
They're such neat dogs.
We're on our third generation of burners.
You are? You still have one?
Yeah, we've got one, Eloise the Bernese.
Oh, that's so cute. I love that.
She's a good ball.
She's Dee Dee transitioned. I think she just felt like they were getting a little big for her. So she's now got a French bulldog named Coco, who's adorable. So. All right, so ours is ready.
Ours is ready.
Right. I'm putting our kale in.
Yeah.
I'm tasting that salad. It's really delicious.
It's good, isn't it? It's so refreshing and just so, I don't know, it always lifts my spirits.
Even the fennel tastes okay in there.
Are you, oh yeah, see, Lisa? I'm converting you.
Yeah, it's good, really good. I love how I never knew how to cut the citrus like that.
Well, now you know, and like I said,
Changer.
it is an act of love. So think about doing that for someone you love as a little treat.
Wow. Attention, very messy.
The top.
How's everyone's soup tasting?
Good, I think we put our kale in a little early, but that's okay.
That's okay. I mean, it will still,
just
you know, taste good. It'll just be a little bit army green in color, but that's okay.
That's right. It's army green in color, Fred. He's all pissed off. Like, why did you tell her? Why did you tell her? I'm supposed to be the perfect chef.
You know, listen, this is, like I said, this is a minestrone, a vegetable soup. It's super forgiving. So
Right.
it's kind of one of those things. I read a description of a soup once that they called it a quiet soup. And I feel like it is kind of a quiet soup. Like it's not that exciting, but it's actually so like nourishing and delicious when you have it that every time I have it, I'm like, oh yeah, this is actually really good.
Yeah.
But the one thing
Is it always vegetarian?
the what is?
Is it always a vegetarian soup, minestrone?
Yeah. It can definitely be vegetarian soup.
Do people put meat in it sometimes?
You could, if you wanted, you could put like a little bit of salt. I mean, the idea of like a classic minestrone is basically a vegetarian soup, so you wouldn't, but sure you can. You could put, you know, a little bit of like sliced sausage in there might be nice. Or if you have like leftover chicken, you could put, you know, some shredded chicken in there if you wanted to make it a little more hearty. The other thing that I think is important too are your toppings, your garnishes for it. So obviously we have our mint pesto, but if you don't have any pesto, you could just, you know, do like a drizzle of olive oil and some Parmesan cheese or a little sprinkle of chopped parsley. And those things make a difference. They're small, but they make a difference in the overall flavor and the taste of it, as well as the presentation of it. So I'm going to get a bowl of ours out so we can see.
Really good.
Gotta get a little venison in there, Ted.
There you go.
Whatever you like, whatever you like.
Lindsay does not let me bring that into the house. But we have a freezer if you need any.
Oh, good to know. That is good to know. We sometimes have it around the holidays, Christmas, and it's not that easy to find. Okay, so I'm going to put a little dollop of my pesto on the top right here. Tastes really nice when it's stirred in. Lindsay's got our citrus salad. She's photographing it, yeah. And that's it. So, what time is it? 7:30?
It is 7:35.
7:35. Okay, we finished on time. If anybody wants, I did bring a mango because I thought you might be interested in knowing how to cut a mango, but I don't want to hold you up. So if you guys want to go and, you know, have dinner,
Yes, Al.
I won't be offended if you drop off.
Show us how, Donna. Come on.
Okay, all right, I'll show you how quickly and then we'll let you go.
Hey, Donna, we can keep you here till like 10 or 11 if you're up for it.
I might run out of things to cut, Lisa, but try it.
I started
Best
looking
thing
around.
you ever taught me was how to do a pomegranate.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
You
Yeah.
changed my life because I eat a lot of pomegranates, and that is like the best thing I've ever done is whacking that pomegranate. And the way you told me, it was great.
You know, it's good too. When you have a little aggression, we'll do that in our next one. We'll do that in advanced knife skills. Well, it's not even, we don't even need a knife, honestly, for that. We just need a wooden spoon.
Yeah.
Okay, so mango has a big flat pit that runs through it. So what you want to do is put it on the cutting board, and it will naturally fall to the way that the pit is lying like this. So now that we know that, we know the positioning of the pit. So we're going to turn it on its side so it's perpendicular, and we're going to cut down through the middle. And basically we're trying to get to just to the side of that pit. So I'm feeling it, and I'm now shimmying my knife down along the side of it, and I'm curving around the pit a little bit. So I have one side, and now I'm going to do that again on the other side.
No. Yes, it
Not
is.
like another comment.
And now I have two halves. And now I can take these halves around here,
No.
and take those off,
It's like $500. I'll buy it for you.
just like that.
I'll buy it next month.
And then you have a couple of options. So you can cut down into slices, just like this, and then you can cut them out. So you can cut just down around the bottom of the skin,
Ooh, careful,
have
careful.
yummy slices.
Yeah.
Or you can do where you hedgehog it. So you cut down, but not all the way through the skin. Cut down in a grid pattern like that. And then you can turn it like that and pull your chunks out. And now you've got your mango. Questions?
Where's the pit?
Hmm?
Did the pit come out?
No, the pit, I cut around the pit. So the pit's in here. So I cut the two sides off. I had two halves. This was one half and this was my other half. And these were my little ends.
Okay.
And this is the pit. So if sometimes it gets a little fibrous-y around the pit, but sometimes you'll be like, oh, there's a little bit extra there. So you can sometimes cut a little bit more off the pit, but for the most part, it's just the pit.
Not a typical pit. Oh, it's just made a comment.
Donna, in the garlic, when there's like a green sort of sprout,
The what?
in the garlic, when there's a green sprout.
Yeah. It
and
means it's
sometimes
old.
like,
It
so-
means it's old, basically. So you just want to pull that green sprout out.
even when it's not fully sprouting, but just like a little piece of it.
If it's just like a tiny little piece on the end, that's fine. But if it's like, if it's something that runs through the whole center of the clove, then I would pull it out and not use it.
Eliza, it's all good.
I just feel like every garlic clove has a green sprout in it.
Well, it does this time of year. It's the variety that we grow. The music garlic is intended to be used by January. We're still using it, and I've been using it in cooking classes. And if you want, because you're part of the farm staff, I will personally select some cloves and some garlic that absolutely will have no green in it.
Thank you.
Eliza, you're special.
Now, are all the ingredients
I feel
used
that.
tonight, with the exception of the citrus and the mango, were all the ingredients can be grown at the farm? Fred?
It depends. We've done beans before, in terms of the dried beans. Yeah, actually, I guess most of it is technically, obviously, tomatoes. I got to look at. Oh yeah, actually, the Lacinato Kale we just planted today.
Oh.
And yeah, the carrots, everything else. I mean, we have half the ingredients we have in our soup is from the farm. So, and I think that's an important part about going forward, talking about, this is the first session that we've done with trying to work with chefs. And obviously, we're having to pivot during these times to be able to do stuff like this. It would be great to be in person. But Donna, you did a great job tonight. Lindsay did a fantastic job of switching the camera over. And I just look forward to this summer where we're able to actually harvest food and do chef experiences like this in the RCC. And so, yeah.
Well, it was, like I said, it felt great to be back here, and, we missed having the rest of you here with us, but it was great to see you on the screens, and great to see all of you. And hopefully, we'll be able to do it in person this summer and make an actual summer minestrone with all Russian produce.
Donna, do you have like some suggestions or like tips on, so I still have half a red onion. What's the best way to store it now that it's been cut? And like the fennel, I didn't use all that.
Yeah, so I would store it. I mean, I know some people are, I have to admit, I'm not so eco-conscious on that. So I would just probably put it in a plastic bag and put it in the fridge. But if you have like a special store bag or something, you could store it that way. If you don't want to store it, you could actually, a great use for it would be to just finish slicing it. And then you could pickle it. And then you could have it to put in salads or in sandwiches, because they'll last for a couple days. And basically pickling is a very fancy term, and it essentially means you're going to put it in some vinegar, some sugar, and some salt. That is like a basic pickling brine. So if you just stir those together until the sugar and the salt dissolve, put the onions in there for 10 minutes or so. They won't need too long.
That's great.
And then you can store them in the fridge that way, and they'll last for a bunch of days. They're great on tacos. They're great, like I said, in salads. You can put them in almost anything.
Donna, just a comment. You're timing an hour and a half. Lindsay and I work together. I'm not a great cook, but I'm a better cutter now. But the timing is perfect. We learned all this in an hour and a half, and we actually prepared the meal. And Lindsay and I eat quite quickly. We've actually consumed the meal already. It's fantastic.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad to hear that.
Great. It's great.
And Mark and Arden, I'm so happy that you were able to join us. I was telling Lindsay earlier that, I'd seen you the other day and was mentioning that I was doing this. And Mark, not to embarrass Arden, but Mark was telling me that Arden, his daughter, is about to be a graduate student in plant physiology at Cambridge. And she's currently working at Rodale. And Lindsay just told me that you used to work there. So
yeah, during the 90s, that was my first job out of college. I was, back in the day, a research editor, which, because the internet wasn't, I hate to say how old I am, but in the 90s, the internet wasn't up and going. I had to actually go to books to research information, but it was an incredible time. And we have a lot of ties with Rodale, so that's fantastic. That's really cool.
I love it. The work they're doing is awesome, and loving the research part of it. It's a lot of, like soil preparation and a lot of lab stuff, but it's been awesome. They're a great environment.
You can work at the farm this summer to really get close to those plants.
That's serious, actually. We have one of our former people, his dad was the book editor for Rodale Institute, and we still have had some connections over the years, but that's great. You're getting that experience, and make the most of it, because I think that it is an incredible institution.
Yeah, I watched Kiss the Ground, and then made everyone in my family watch Kiss the Ground, and that's how we all kind of started to learn more about it. And I didn't realize how local it was. So it's a bit of a drive, but it's fine. It's been great. Everyone there is super passionate about the mission. So
oh yeah,
it's very inspiring.
That's cool.
And she's lucky she has a mom who's fine with no car every day.
That's awesome. It's good to see young people go in the right direction. Who needs money, right?
I will say, this is off topic real quick, but it was.
That's what I say. I tell my students, none of you are getting rich at this job, but you're gonna love what you do.
unless it's 90 degrees and July.
That's right.
Yeah, just real quick. So in Cambridge, are you getting any experience out there in England?
Yeah, I'll be there for 3 to 4 years doing a PhD, and I'm studying mostly how cucumber mosaic vine targets different types of plants and changes the organic compounds that they emit that attract pollinators and deter pests, and trying to figure out how that relationship works between the virus manipulating the smells that they produce and then how different insects react to it.
That's fantastic. And I mean, seriously, if you get the opportunity, we're in the greenhouse Monday through Friday, and at least just stop by and say hello. Noah is our beekeeper, and we've got incredible staff, and at least just touch base with us.
Yeah, I would love that. I've been meaning to come by, forever. I feel like my parents have been talking about it, and now with COVID, the timing hasn't totally worked out, but I would love to come by if you guys are there.
Well, we have your email, and we'll definitely be in touch.
Sounds good.
And read this book. You probably read it. It's called What a Plant Knows by Daniel Shamovitz. You know him, right?
Yes, I have his book on my bookshelf, but
well, thank goodness.
I haven't gotten it yet, though.
Bird people know a thing or two about plants too, sometimes. That's great.
I studied birds all through college and came to the plant realization kind of later in college, and then was like, this is, a place to make an impact with
good
environmental science. So
that's great. Good for you. Good.
Oh, well, thank you everyone for tuning in. It's been really fun.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thank you very much.
I'll be sharing.
Have a good night.
Thank you for everything.
Bye. In touch with the recording and all those fancy French words terms that Donna and any other resources. So come back and please let us know about your experience. Please, we want all the feedback that you can possibly provide, and then come back to the next one to see us put it to use.
Yeah, it was great.
She's really good.
You're great, Donna.
Thank you. Have a great night. Hope to see you all again soon.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.